The planet Cryos-Gorgon is a graveyard of heat. It is a world where the laws of thermodynamics feel like a personal insult. The vegetation here isn't made of cellulose. It is made of hyperconductive crystalline structures that siphon energy from the atmosphere. But the real terror of this world is the thermal apex. These are not just predators, they are biological heat sinks. They are massive, six-limbed reptiles with scales made of a strange, obsidian-like organic glass. They don't have a metabolism in the way we understand it. They survive by absorbing every joule of thermal energy in their vicinity. When a thermal apex hunts, the temperature drops 60 degrees in a matter of seconds. They create pockets of absolute zero, freezing their prey into brittle statues before they even know they are being watched. The first human research teams were found as piles of blue-tinted ice. Their heaters were still running, but the monsters had sucked the energy right out of the power cells. Conventional thermal optics are useless because the apex has no heat signature. They are colder than the air around them. They are ghosts in a world of frost, invisible, silent, and hungry for the warmth in our blood. But the Federation doesn't like being cold. They sent the 3rd Heavy Forge Division, the Magma-Walkers. We don't use stealth. We don't use camouflage. We are the opposite of everything Cryos-Gorgon stands for. We wear Vulcan-class industrial suits, originally designed for deep mantle mining and starforge maintenance. These suits are built around a localized fusion furnace. We don't just carry heat, we generate it on a catastrophic scale. Our mission is to walk into the freezing zones and raise the temperature until the air itself begins to scream. We are the sun that comes for the dark. I am Commander Kalen. My suit's internal core is currently idling at 1200 degrees Celsius. And I am about to make this jungle boil. The drop into the glacial thicket was a violent collision of elements. The moment my boots hit the crystalline ground, a massive cloud of steam erupted as the ice vaporized under my weight. The air hissed, a sound of thousand snakes, as the extreme heat of my suit met the eternal frost of the planet. "Check your heat sinks," I said into the comms. The voice was distorted by the roar of the internal furnace. "We are at 500 degrees ambient. Do not let the core overheat or we become a tactical nuke." Unit 2 Sarah. "Sinks are open. The ice is melting before I even touch it, Kalen." Unit 3 Vane. "Thermal apex signatures detected. Or rather, the lack of them. I see 3 cold spots moving at 2 o'clock. The jungle around us was a nightmare of beauty. The trees were towering spires of blue ice, their leaves like jagged glass. But as we moved, the beauty turned to ash. The ice trees didn't just melt, they shattered under the thermal shock. The air was becoming a thick, blinding fog of steam and soot. "Contact!" Sarah roared. A thermal apex lunged from the fog. It was a terrifying, spindly beast, 10 feet tall and moving with a jerky liquid grace. It didn't try to bite, it simply tried to touch Sarah's armor, its body acting like a massive vacuum for her heat. I saw the violet glow in its eyes intensify as it began to drain the energy from her frontal plates. "Ignite the soul pulse," I commanded. Sarah slammed her gauntlets together. A massive wave of concentrated infrared radiation erupted from her suit. It wasn't a fire, it was pure, unadulterated heat. The thermal apex shrieked, a sound like metal grinding on metal, as its obsidian scales began to crack. It was designed to absorb heat, but it couldn't handle the sheer volume of energy we were forcing into it. The creature's internal organs began to cook as it reached its absorption limit. It exploded in a spray of boiling black ichor. "They are everywhere. Don't let them cluster," Vane shouted. The swarm was coming. They realized that we weren't just prey, we were a feast that was too hot to handle. Dozens of them emerged from the shadows, their black bodies blending into the steam. They moved in a coordinated pincer movement, trying to overwhelm our heat sinks. I raised my primary weapon, the pyre cannon. It didn't fire plasma or bullets. It fired a stream of superheated liquid thermite. I swept the weapon in a wide arc, the molten metal cutting through the crystalline trees like a hot wire through butter. The jungle was no longer a frozen paradise. It was a forge. The ground was becoming a lake of slush and mud. The air was a suffocating 500 degrees. I could see the thermal apex predators panicking. Their primary advantage, their invisibility to heat, was gone. In a world this hot, their cold bodies stood out like ink on snow. They were bright violet silhouettes in a world of orange fire. Vane took the right flank, his heavy hammer glowing white-hot. He swung the massive tool, the impact shattering an apex's head into 1,000 shards of frozen glass. He wasn't just killing them, he was evaporating them. Every strike sent a shockwave of steam into the air. I felt a massive weight slam into my back. A prime apex, the size of a small tank, had leaped from a high ledge. It wrapped its 6 limbs around my suit, its scales vibrating as it tried to suck the life out of my fusion core. I felt the temperature in my cockpit drop 10 degrees instantly. My HUD flashed warnings: heat drain critical. Core stability at 84%. You want it? I growled, my hands gripping the creature's neck. Take it all. I opened the emergency venting ports on my shoulders. A jet of pressurized, superheated steam and plasma waste erupted directly into the creature's face. The prime apex didn't even have time to shriek. Its head was vaporized in a millisecond. I grabbed the twitching body and threw it into the path of another charging predator, the heat of the corpse igniting the nearby foliage. We pushed toward the heart nest. This was where the local temperature was lowest, a cave of absolute zero where the brood queen sat. As we approached, the air became a physical wall of cold. The steam from our suits was freezing into ice pellets before it could even drift away. Core to maximum. I ordered. Overload the limiters. We pushed our suits to the breaking point. The metal of my armor turned from a dull red to a brilliant, blinding white. The heat was so intense that the ground beneath my boots turned to glowing slag. We entered the cave, and the battle became a visceral struggle between the sun and the void. The brood queen was a titan of obsidian glass, 30 feet long and pulsing with a terrifying violet light. She didn't move, she just inhaled. I felt the heat being pulled from my suit like a physical cord. My systems began to shut down one by one. My HUD flickered and died. I was flying blind, fueled only by the roaring fire of the furnace behind me. Sarah and Vane unleashed their flamethrowers, the white-hot magnesium fire filling the cave. The queen shrieked, the sound cracking the very walls of the mountain. She lashed out with her massive tail, shattering Vane's shoulder plate, but he didn't stop. He jammed his glowing hammer into her side, the metal fusing with her obsidian scales. I lunged for her head. I didn't use a weapon. I used my hands. I grabbed her massive jaws and channeled every ounce of energy from my core into my gauntlets. Burn, I whispered. The explosion of heat was localized but absolute. I felt the queen's head melt between my fingers. The obsidian turned to liquid, then to gas. A massive shockwave of thermal energy ripped through the cave, incinerating the remaining predators and collapsing the ice ceiling. I stumbled out of the cave as the mountain behind us began to melt into a river of mud and water. My suit was hissing, the heat sinks glowing a dull, exhausted red. I pulled off my helmet and for the first time in hours, I felt the cold air of the planet. But it didn't feel like a threat anymore. It felt like a breeze. I looked at Sarah and Vane. They were standing in the middle of a blackened, smoking wasteland. Where there had once been a frozen jungle of crystalline trees, there was now only a valley of ash and steam. The thermal apex was gone. The freezing zone had been deleted from the map. Humanity has proven the ultimate truth of the Apex Protocol. You can hide in the cold. You can be the master of absolute zero. You can be a ghost in the frost. But we are the ones who carry the fire. We are the ones who turn the world into a forge. And when we arrive, the winter doesn't just end. It dies. The brood queen is liquid. The nest is ash. Cryos-Gorgon is warming up. The mission is over. We are going back to the ship. And I want a cold drink. A very, very cold drink.